Hello, my name is Jonathan Zavala, and welcome to my first ever chess video. Chess is a hobby of mine. I enjoy playing it a lot. I play at a local chess club. It has an art gallery. People are nice. There's a Facebook page for it. That'll be in my description of this video, along with a link for Ryan's channel. He's a friend of mine, and he also makes videos on YouTube. He has encouraged me to do this, so big shout out to him, and I strongly recommend going to his channel and checking out what he's got. So, um, my disclaimer here, I am not a titled player, so, what I have to say is not going to be anything earth-shattering, but I do hope to be at least entertaining, and if anything, you can come on here and watch my videos, learn how I think, and use it against me somehow. So, anyway, let's get started. This is a game I played last night at the club. It was against Antonio Artuz. He had the black pieces and I had the white pieces, and this game started out e4, c5, knight f3, d6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, knight f6 hitting my pawn, and so I should defend it while developing, getting my knight out. In chess, you should use all of your pieces, so far, if you noticed, I am dedicating each move to a piece. I want my entire army to be in this game. a6 was played, and you may be wondering, after I just said, hey, use your pieces, and he just made another pawn move. Well, this move does a couple of things, actually. First, it denies my knight this b5 square, which can be useful in some lines. Say, if he plays his pawn out here to e5, there's a lot of very sharp variations where the knight can come to b5. Also, the bishop is denied the b5 square. So this a4 to e8 diagonal can be vulnerable too. And so it's a defensive move, and it's also an aggressive move because now this pawn on b7 is prepared to come out to b5, and the bishop can come to b7, and the pawn on b5 kick that knight on c3. So all very normal so far, nothing that's really new. I continue with bishop g5. He plays knight to b to d7, f4, gaining some space. And so, if you haven't noticed already, I am planning to attack on the king side. He plays e6, queen to f3, queen to c7, and now I castle queenside. So if my attack's on the king side, it makes sense to castle queenside, where my king will be out of the way, won't be interfering. And also this rook comes to the semi-open d-file. Bishop e7 was played, so black makes way to castle on the king side, also getting this bishop into the game. Bishop d3. Now my last piece is here, he's ready, and development is over on my part. b5, like we talked about, a6 supports b5, b4 may be coming, and bishop is ready to come to b7 if he chooses. I decide in this position to just develop my rook to e1. Bishop does indeed come to b7, and here I decide to play a waiting move with king b1. My attack is going to be on this king side, but black still hasn't castled, and he could castle queenside if he wanted, so I want to see what he does. And also, king b1 gets off of this c1 to h6 diagonal, which can be, well, it can be used if this bishop were to ever come here, check the king, and lastly, defends a2. So it's a defensive move as well as a waiting move. And my opponent plays rook c8, so now he has shown his hand to me. He will not be castling on the queen side, and I decided to get my ideas going here on the king side. I decided on queen g3. I am indirectly attacking this g7 point, and if knight were to come to h5, my plan was to play queen h4, and bishop captures, queen captures, knight's hanging out here, and this pawn is weak. So that was my intention if knight h5, which was not played. He instead played a more dubious move with queen a5, and I'm not sure what the queen is doing here. I think it would have been better just to keep it here on c7, because I intend to play e5, and it lends support to this e5 point. Here it would also do the same thing if he could play b4, but he never gets time for that move, so we'll see what happens. Bishop takes f6, and so capture this piece, and I'm attacking this g7 point, so it makes sense that he captures the g-pawn. And so just real quick, let me show you a couple of things. Bishop captures. I was intending e5, which turns out to be the strongest move. D takes e5, f takes e5, and let's say knight captures. Well, I would get two pieces for the rook, so I would just capture with the rook here, and then if bishop captures, queen takes, and that should be good for me. And so let's say bishop e7 instead, then I just capture that pawn, and rook f8 is forced. And my position seems good here. Bishop e4, and if he captures, it would just help my knight get into this game. And you may be wondering, well, let's say the rook captures here, because it's worth looking at. But if he does do this, I don't have to capture right away, because you see I'm opening up my king. This bishop can come here. I can just play a better move, capture that bishop instead, and then if the rook's here, it's like, what's it doing? It has to move now. So going back. So, yeah, d takes e5. Alright. We looked at bishop takes f6. Now let's see knight takes f6. Well, e5, same thing. D takes e5, f takes e5, and knight h5. So my queen's being hit. Queen comes to g4. Now I'm hitting his knight and the pawn. So if the knight moves, I will be capturing that. And then rook takes e3. So we see this idea again. He's sacking that rook, but this bishop is open and it can be deadly. But luckily I had a nice resource if this were to occur. B takes e3, queen takes e3, and the beautiful shot, knight takes e6. And the point, bishop a3, and oh no, I'm being checkmated, but not quite. Queen d4, and indirectly guarding that b2 point. And so, having gone over the other two options here, after bishop takes f6, g takes f6. Here's what was played in the game. I go ahead and play queen g7. Now this rook's hanging, so he has to do something about that. Rook f8. And I play, well, sort of a embarrassing move on my part. Knight d5. And in retrospect, this is more of a bluff than anything. So let's say he were to play the strongest move here, e takes d5, and e takes d5. I thought there was more to this than there really was, because now this rook is opened, and I am lining up against his king. But I overlooked after bishop recaptures. As you can see, now my a2 point is being targeted, and it's something I shouldn't have overlooked, but I was only concerned with this side of the board here. I thought I could play knight f5 in this position, and maybe bishop e6 would be forced, but turns out that's not the case. So maybe that's something to take away from this, because I catch myself doing this every now and then. I'll just only be looking at one side of the board, and I should have paid more attention over here because that's not too hard to see. Let's say a3 were to be played, knight c5, and knight f5, so what I was talking about, I want to get this bishop. But nice move, knight e6. He's hitting my queen here, this pawn, and effectively blocking this file. Queen takes a7 and b4, and it just seems like black has all the play. I don't know how I can justify sacrificing a piece. Although it still might be playable, but this is not something I had intended at all. So going back, luckily for me, my opponent didn't call me on my bluff. He instead recaptured with the bishop, which I was very happy to see. So I just capture, and notice I haven't lost any material. e5. Something had to be done about the c6 point. I am attacking it 3 times, and black does not want that to open up in my favor. So e5, knight c6, nice square. It takes away this d8 square for the king, and pawn were to ever capture, this rook comes in with check and mate, and queen's being hit. So given all this, I guess my opponent decided that that knight was too menacing, so he took it off. I recapture, of course, knight c5, and then here I played f takes e5. And the point is, I saw after, say, knight e6, there's this nice move, e takes d6. And so, looks like my queen is hanging, but if black were to just go ahead and take it, I play rook takes e7 with check, king d8, and rook a7. And these pawns do well to cover this whole rank while I'm threatening to play checkmate. And the best black can hope for is just to play king e8 and block with the queen. So, would not have been good if knight e6 were to be played in this position. But instead, after f takes e5, f takes e5 is played, I go ahead and play bishop f5. So if knight e6 is played, I'll just recapture. When you're up material, it's good to trade down. And so he does that, and I recapture, or I capture. He recaptures, and then pawn on h7 is hanging, so I might as well take it, while at the same time g6 is now being threatened for a check, and then I pick up this guy. So after a long think, my opponent came up with b4, and I can see why he might play this move. Lend some support to e5. That's about it. I'm not really seeing any sort of attack here. But my move is still queen g6. I probably would have played it regardless of, like, say, queen c7 in that position. So check, king goes to d8, queen takes e6, and if you notice, checkmate is being threatened. Only move would have been queen c7, but then I just come crashing through here with rook takes e5. If you notice, this pawn's being pinned. So here my opponent resigned. And it was a good game. I wish I had taken a little bit longer. I had over an hour on my clock, so I could have seen this whole thing with on a2. But in the end it worked out. So yeah, that's it for now. I hope to be doing some more chess videos, not only of the games I play at the club, but I have more games here from in the past 3 years I have accumulated a lot of games, so it might be fun to go through some of those. Anyway, that's it for this video. Tune in next time, and all criticism is welcome. Thank you.